What is up, my cutouts cardboard ninja here, coming at you with the most recent news from Crossout. Two things going on this time. One, apparently the devs were given a Q&A session. We'll go over that later. And then in addition to that, there is a Cabin Fusion event going on in Crossout. So you make use of the Cabin Fusion event, go ahead and go to your storage, find any cabin that you want, go ahead and hit upgrade. Also, there's going to be a button over here that says, where is it? Upgrades. You can click upgrade and it'll bring up the item selection. And during this item selection process, there is a special offer. And that special offer is for a myriad of cabins. Not all of them, but a myriad of them. And the reason why it's not all of them is because any cabin that's currently obtainable in any of the active passes is not here. So a good example of this would be if you go to the challenges, go to crafting, you're not going to be able to grab a whaler cabin or a Janabee and et cetera, or Jawbreaker or anything like that. Because of the fact that it's available here, you cannot get it via this Cabin Fusion event. So before anyone goes out and says, time for me to fuse my cabin, don't do it. Don't do it. Jesus Christ, don't do it. This is effectively gambling. Right? So the overall idea is you take a standard cabin that you have, it doesn't matter what it is. In this case, let's assume you wanted to use the Fury. You would need another Fury in order to upgrade it. Instead of you requiring 2 additional Furies, you need 1 Fury, and then you get reliability, power, and handling, one of each from each of these randoms. The problem, okay, you are effectively never going to get what you want off of this. Effectively never. Dead ass. The only reason for Cabin Fusion events is refusing. So, for example, let's assume that you purchased a previous battle pass, like, I don't know, me, and I wanted to go to the cohort, right? The previous battle pass cohort was not perfectly fused. In fact, it's nowhere near it. It's got durability, power, and built-in radar radius. Technically, you'd want durability, top speed, and additional mass, right? Well, in this instance, because I have durability, I would then take another cohort and shove it into this cohort and use the fusion. I would say, hey, I'm going to use up my legendary stabilizers to lock in durability, and then I would reroll the others to try and get the thing that I want. That's the purpose of these fusion events. The purpose of the fusion events is to modify something that is already fused. Do not attempt to fuse into something you want. And because I'm already an idiot and a friend of mine decided to walk me through this, I attempted to fuse one thing in this event. This is the cockpit. Mine's currently fused for durability, thumbs up, great, power, thumbs up, great, and built-in radar radius. But if you mosey on over to the market and check my market history, the issue is how many cockpits did this take? 2, right? Wrong. This took 3. I had one in the wings waiting. So it took the base cockpit, it took an additional cockpit, and 2 additional cockpits to still not have a perfect fusion. This gets very expensive very quickly, and additionally, you can't get the stabilizers at any reasonable pace. Stabilizers only show up from leveling up engineers or leveling up any other faction, and you get the crate, right? And then you get the stabilizers, and you usually only get rares. It is very rare for you to get a legendary. It's very rare for you to get an epic. And fusing epics takes 3, fusing legendaries takes 2 epics, and fusing into a special takes 4 rares. That is a lot of levels. So you don't get very many grabs the bag for this event. So don't do it. You're not going to want to do it. If you do it, the way that it works is, if you were to, by the way, I still don't do it. If you do upgrade, what ends up happening is you get one of each of these things. Let's assume you're trying to refuse. Here's the kicker. Even with stabilizers, you are still not guaranteed to get anything good. Obviously, you can lock whatever you want. So a great example, we'll go back to the cockpit, and you guys can actually see the progress that I went through. I went from an unfused cockpit into durability on my first try, thumbs up. Then it was built-in radar radius, and I think it was mass limit. Those are my 3. I used 1 stabilizer to stabilize reliability for my first reroll, and it rerolled into the exact same shit. So that's the thing they don't tell you. It doesn't mean that if it is unlocked, that it will change. The assumption is that it will change, but it does not have to. It is another grab bag at 1 and 3 every single time. So in that instance, it is unlikely, but it was clearly possible for me to get the exact same shit that was broken. Because it doesn't mean that if you have power as random 1 and 3, and you had built-in radar radius and you re-roll, built-in radar radius can be the next thing on the right. You'll get it right back. Just because it's a 1 in 3 chance of you not, 2 in 3 chance of you not getting the exact same fusion doesn't mean that you're not going to get the same fusion. So be very wary of this event because it's for the rich, right? It's for the rich or for the broke. So a good example of that for that be like if you go to the market and you find a cheap cabin, right? Let's assume I wanted to fuse my Fury, right? You would go and you go to the market and be like, there's 250 coins. I mean, well, no one's selling them, but there's a reason, because right now, the fusion event's on, right? So the idea is a cheap cabin, now's the time. If you don't have a fused growl cabin, now is the time. If you any rare cabin right now, like any rare cabin, you should probably fuse if you're new to the game. So basically a growl, get yourself a wyvern, maybe fuse your trucker, any of the other non-craftable cabins that exist in the game. Those are all, now's a good time. If they're cheap. Some of the things, getting a bastion, by the way, you don't need to refuse it for a bastion. Right now there's I don't think you can, first of all. Second of all, there's a perfect fused bastion on one of the battle passes that exists out there. I think it's Treasure Seekers, and you can get a god fused bastion. And you might be wondering, Bastion sucks. Yeah, but it's good in Levy CW. That's all. But anyway, so therein lies the cabin fusion event in a nutshell. Don't do it. Save your money. Don't be like me. Don't fucking lose 4K into nothing. Don't do it. Alrighty, so let's mosey on over to the Q&A for the developers. So apparently there's a Q&A for the developers. There is a lot of content here. So first question is, hey, the Ripper's not playable. Wah, we don't like it. Wah, it's like, why? And, well, the devs are like, yeah, we think that the Ripper sucks. I don't know why they're saying this. I genuinely don't. The Ripper is extremely powerful from my experiences. So when I say from my experiences, you have to include every game mode that you play. Anytime there's one of those stupid events that Gaijin releases, for some reason, there's always the car that uses the Rippers, and it always works very, very well. In fact, you guys might remember very recently there was the Halloween event where you're running around popping people's assholes with the Ripper. Right? So the Ripper has interesting, if not unreliable, results. And yes, the Ripper blades in the ground aren't very effective and are very difficult to use because you've got to predict in a 3-dimensional space the actual trajectory and path of a car and put Ripper blades in the way. That's if you're doing that. It still does 100 damage per blade. At point blank range, with the reload that the Ripper has, it's actually very dangerous. It is a very dangerous gun and very, very dangerous so on a Leviathan. For some reason, they're thinking of buffing it. I don't know. I don't think it needs the buff, to be super honest. They're claiming unplayable, which is non-competitive relics, the Ripper, the Typhoon, the Firebug, the Porcupine, and the Punisher, and the Jormungandr. They're like, hey, fix this. They're like, okay, so Ripper, see the previous answer. The CC-18 Typhoon, this is not cool. They're saying the weapon has a fair amount of efficiency at the moment. It doesn't. We know it's relatively unpopular. This is true, but changing one enemy weakening perk to another isn't going to make a difference. That is a lie. We have plans to change the perk from weakening enemies to increasing the damage dealt by the weapon itself. So they're making it the Tsunami. So after years and years of the Typhoon being effectively just a worse Tsunami, they're just like, yeah, we're just going to steal the Tsunami's perk. Hold on a second. Here's the deal. There was a time, and I've said this on stream, where the Typhoon was the most powerful relic in the game. The reason why it was the most powerful relic in the game was because of the fact that it literally turned off your build. That's why I said that changing one enemy weakening perk to another isn't going to make a difference. That is a lie. That is a fucking lie. Anybody who played the Typhoon back in the day knows that again, in the description of the Typhoon, it said, anyone struck by this, it's a death sentence. It was a death sentence. That was actually in the description of the weapon itself. But it was a death sentence because people would literally turn your car off. I think it gave somewhere in the neighborhood of a minus 100% power for 3 seconds or some shit. It wasn't 3 seconds, it was like a second and a half. But the reason why it was 3 seconds is because you'd have 2, and you'd shoot them with one, and then you'd shoot them with the other, which meant that their car turned off, and by the time the perk the debuff wore off, they would very slowly start to gain power back to try and drive away. You just shoot them again. It was a death sentence. A phenomenal weapon that got nerfed into the ground. The current debuff perk on it is completely valueless. It's like, oh, your weapons take longer to cool down and take longer to reload. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Except the debuff doesn't have any effect on active combat. If their weapon is not already in the cooling down state, or if their weapon was not already about to cool down or about to reload, this does nothing. It does nothing. So that they changed it for an extraordinarily powerful debuff for one that is an irrelevant debuff. So swapping the debuff to, like, I bet money, I'll bet you dead ass anything. If they turn the Typhoon back into what it was, it would become the most powerful relic immediately. Immediately. Imagine seeing this in Levy CW or something. You shoot the enemy Leviathan with it and it stops it in its tracks. Kiss ass. This is this lie. Changing one enemy weakening perk to another isn't going to make a difference. Yes, it is. Just make the perk strong. Firebug. We will basically they're saying we'll test changes to the range of the flamethrower, jet speed, but it should be noted that the parameters will still be lower than that of the Scatty. So the Scatty is the I'm going to call it thermal weapon with the fastest projectile velocity. It shoots its ice further than any flamethrower shoots fire. The Firebug currently has the lowest projectile speed of any flame weapon. I've mentioned this before. I actually have this on one of my videos describing or demonstrating the difference. It actually has a 25% slower projectile than the Draco and the Remedy. So when they all fire at the exact same time, it's not even the exact same distance. It takes longer for the Firebug to reach the same distance because it's slower, and also because of how the TTL, time to live, of the projectile is on flame weapons, it means that it also dies out sooner. Firebugs are in a bad way because of the fact that you are melee only with them, effectively, and also you still have to lead your shots, and you also have to lead your shots further than the Draco and further than the Remedy. So if they're increasing the projectile speed of the Firebug, good. I mean, that's a buff. I'll take it. Porcupine, after changes, it hovers, and the weapon itself, its popularity is decreased, but still remains a fairly high level as well as efficiency. There are no plans to cancel previous changes this time. Porcupine's strong. People complaining about it, I don't know why. The Porcupine has the highest DPS potential of any gun in the game. It brings fire, it brings explosive, you have tons of ammunition, it's small. It's a great gun. People just don't like it because they're complaining. Punisher changes the weapon will be considered after the release of the last announced changes for hit scan weapons. So, again, I've said multiple times over, the Punisher is a very phenomenally powerful gun. And, in my opinion, was, up until the hit scan change, the most powerful gun in the game. So, I don't know why it's on this list. People just don't like it because it's not flashy, I guess. I mean, ultimately, the Punisher's job is to strip any weapon. That's its job. Triple Punisher, Double Punisher, Aurora did a great job at this, but people don't like that gameplay. People are hiding their guns under their builds, like the underslung Wangs, which is why they keep nerfing the Young Wang, trying to prevent it from being underneath your build. Dracos under your build. All your guns under your build. Do you know why all those fucking guns are being hidden underneath heavy cabins and 400 tons of armor? The Punisher! Because the Punisher removed them. That's why. If your gun was exposed, the Punisher just slapped it right off your fucking build. But, once again, those hit scan changes are coming, and they're coming hard. They're coming fast. Jormungandr. People are saying something about proposed change to weapon only looking appropriate in the view of the whole branch of single shotguns that they announced cannon change will construct. They basically have nothing up for the Jormungandr, I think. Yeah. Due to the current way of how builds behave on contact, melee builds are overly effective since the build that is pushed in melee is completely unable to move anywhere except in the direction of the push. We are aware of the problem. Unfortunately, get fucked. Listen. You know, I should speed this up because there's a ton of this content. But the overall idea is this. Crashing into someone has always been effective. It will always be effective. But the end, like, I don't know what the problem is here. I know that it sucks to be rammed and then wedged, and wedging and ramming has been in Crossout forever. It's the reason why it still exists, because once you get underneath someone's build, you lift their wheels off the ground. After the wheels off the ground, they have no traction. When they have no traction, they cannot move. Their weapons are usually fixed on 6 certain angles. They can't shoot back, right? Yeah, no shit. It is the way it works, right? It's battle bots. Anybody who's ever seen battle bots, the wedge builds are usually among the strongest because once you immobilize your enemy, you win. Yeah, it's a problem. Is it a problem? It's just how combat works. Sorry. Low efficiency Akami cabin. The perk of the cabin is too narrowly focused, weak, and ineffective compared to the perks of other epic and legendary cabins. As one of the next balance changes, we will try to improve the perk and revise the perk's duration, time, and reload. This is dangerous. The Kami is actually very strong, but I won't go into that. If they want to buff the Kami, I'll be quiet. The speed boost for engines to heavy cabins is too high. Recently, there's been a problem with brick builds that use heavy cabins, have a lot of durability, and at the same time have inadequately high speeds by the standards of heavy builds. We're aware of the speed inflation issue, which is exacerbated as new parts that we create and release into the game intentionally, and mechanics that we release and add into the game are added. We have plans to comprehensively rework both base speeds and speed bonuses acquired from various sources. Your solutions overlaps with ours, so whatever solutions that they were giving on this. So here's the overall idea. Bricks used to suck. They did. They were bad. And the dogs were better in general, and dogs were always light builds. But then bricks got fast. They got pretty. They don't have to be the fastest build. They don't have to go 120. But once you start competing at speeds over, I'd say 80 or 80 to 90 kilometers an hour, you're fine. It is at that moment that you're a capable build. And heavy cabins struggled for years in this game because getting to those speeds on heavy cabins was impossible. They did two things in the game, and they're calling it speed inflation, but that is a lie. They never changed the top speed of the game. The top speed in Crossout is 120. That didn't change. What did change? They made every cabin fucking slower. All light cabins and all medium cabins lost bare minimum 5 kilometers an hour. Minimum. Only 2 cabins remained untouched from that, which was the one that was released late, the Kami, and I think the Aggressor still sits at 105. Someone needs to fact check me on that. I think there's only 2 cabins in the entire game that go to 105 kilometers an hour. So they dropped everything by 5 kilometers an hour. This changed acceleration bands and really hurt light cabins a lot. Medium cabins got hurt a lot. But you know who didn't? Heavy cabins. Because they've always been fucking slow. They've always been slow. So it didn't change shit for the majority of them. The Echo caught a nerf. The Echo was the fastest heavy at 70 kilometers an hour, and then they brought it down to 65 and made all heavy cabins basically 65. So when you combine the ability to have 6,000 to 9,000 durability with the speed of 80 to 90 kilometers an hour, you have the meta. That's what happened. That's the problem. They nerfed the speed of every other cabin. Give the speed back to the other cabins. That's the fix. Done. Like, heavy cabins can still be as fast as they are now and not suck. The problem with heavy cabins has always been that they were so slow and so difficult to get into combat, and you would just be kited to death. That's the reason why. It also felt bad to drive. Keep the speed of the heavy cabins they are now and give everyone else their fucking speed back. Don't call it speedflation, you lying sacks of shit. You made everyone slower and then had the fucking balls to add the speed. Hold on, I'm gonna go minor rant. Then they had the fucking balls to release fusions and items that gave us back the same speed and acceleration that they took away in the first place. Right now, if you're using a Jackie cabin on a fin whale, on a light cabin, it feels the same as back maybe 2 years ago before the speed nerfs when you just used a light cabin with a cheetah engine. So keep that in mind. It now takes multiple legendary items and a co-driver and a fusion in order to feel like the game used to. This isn't inflation. That's bullshit. Augurs, this movement part is superior to every single one in the game, not to mention Omnis and others. So they're saying Augur. The question indicates that people are saying it's the best. For the first time in a long time, the meat grinder has become a competitive movement part. We do not plan to weaken the parameters of the movement part itself, but in the next update, we will remove the influence of bonuses from other parts on its damage. If this is not enough, we'll consider additional changes. So the thing is, the meat grinder right now, people are using it. They're actually using the perk. The perk of the meat grinder is deal damage when you collide with people, and that is based currently on your mass. And combine that with, I don't know, the max top speed of these heavy cabins getting up in the 80s and 90s, and then combine that with damage perks, and all of a sudden, well, believe it or not, the meat grinder is not affected by the Tormentor, but it is affected by universal damage buffs from I don't know what cabin could have been released, that not the Echo, but whatever the fuck that new one, Mars cabin. So yeah, that's the reason why Augurs just got inflated based on other stuff that came into the game. Honestly, I don't even know if you need to change this, though. The one thing that I would do is reduce the blast resistance on Augurs, and that would balance it out. I know they have blast resistance. They don't take very much from the Yongwang. They don't take very much from the Clarinet Toe or anything like that. So reduce their blast resist a little bit. That'll bring them back in line. You don't need to do anything else on them, really. In my opinion, the last balance change of the Tachi perk was disastrous for the weapon. Due to the complete rework of the perk, the weapon almost never is seen in battles. Statistically, the Tachi is currently at a medium level and does not require changes. Compared to the excessive efficiency previously, the weapon is now used as originally intended. This also means get fucked. Did you like the Tachi when we released it? What we meant to do was release it in a way that you would never have purchased it. Get fucked. Problem, hidden Gravistars on heavy builds. High efficiency and difficult to shoot them off. Gravistar efficiency is at a medium level no matter where it is mounted. We have no plans to make changes. Get fucked. And by the way, people are claiming Gravistars. No. They're not wrong. So the reason why Gravistars are not that bad, even when undermounted under a build, is one, because you can just power through the build. I mean, at that point, you just can't target the Gravistars. And I understand that you want to strip the guns, but this comes down to the Punisher issue from earlier. Ignore stripping the guns for just a moment. The overall idea is that when guns are, specifically shotguns, are undermounted under your build, the natural spread of the shotgun actually makes some of its shots strike your build. Bet you didn't know that. So the reason why the devs are actually probably correct on this, I'm sorry, when you're right, you're right. I gotta call the strikes and gotta call the home runs. They're correct on this because the idea is the Gravistar is losing damage. You actually don't do full damage. It fires 4 shots in a very wide arc. Some of those shots hit the ground, some of those shots hit your build. If one out of every 4 shots, one out of every shot, which is a 4, hits you, then you do actually 25% less damage. So that's the cost. You just do 25% less damage when they're around on your build. Question: Spider legs are dead. It's almost impossible to play with them in Clan Wars. Almost any wheeled build can push with medium heavy cabins will push over Spider. Yeah. We are aware of the decline in popularity of the mechanical legs in Clan Wars, but has remained at a sufficient level in other game modes. We have no plans to make changes until you make their direct opponents more friendly. What? What does that even mean? I'm not 100% sure what that means other than get fucked. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I've said this for years. I'll continue to say it. The ML200 legs have been dead since DOA. They're dead on arrival. They're a bad leg. They're just a bad movement part. They always have been. I'm sorry. I understand that there were a couple of CW builds that people wanted to use. Typically, they are the ones where all your guns are entirely protected and your guns are hidden behind your cabin and you've got 30 fucking legs and shit like that. Yeah, I understand that. But they like... ML200s have never been good. The Big Rams got a nerf recently, so you actually have to use wheel mode. Sorry, assholes. So I'm not actually mad about that. And it's not as though you don't have 14 of those fused anyway. I don't know. I think that Spider Legs have the same problem that every other build does, and that is that heavy cabins on wheels coming at you at 90 kilometers an hour beats you regardless. That's their problem. Low efficiency of the M26 tackler. Tackler. Okay. So you guys may remember this from my previous patch notes when I spoke about the tackler, and they buffed every gun, and they claimed the same thing behind the tackler, which was they reduced the energy cost of them. But the tackler, for some reason, was the only one that came with a 19% damage nerf, right? Which is hilarious because when someone in the comments actually did the math, they pointed out that if you previously had 4 tacklers on your build, in order to do identical damage and not get reduced damage from that, you now needed 5 tacklers on your build at the exact same energy cost. So it wasn't a buff. They actually nerfed the tackler. So if you had 4 or less tacklers, you got nerfed. If you had 5 tacklers, you stayed the same. And if you somehow managed to get the energy to get 6 tacklers on, you got a teensy-weensy little buff. It's really bad. The tackler is dog shit. Answer. First, we'll gather statistical data. We will gather, so it means that they didn't look. We'll gather statistical data after the changes announced for hit scan weapons, then we'll release more crap. The problem with long activation time of the perk will be addressed in one of the future balance changes. That's also true. One of the issues with the tackler is that its perk is non-existent. Yeah, it prevents you from being ambushed. That's it. It doesn't prevent you from being ambushed. It means that if somebody gets an ambush shot on you, let's say you're moving from point A to point B, and someone shoots you with scorpions or shoots you with a typhoon or hits you with something while you're moving, you have effectively 50% damage reduction on your tackler if it gets hit during that moment only. After you fire your gun, however, that perk turns off for like half a second. As long as it's firing and plus 1 additional half a second. So you really don't get any benefit from the perk after that moment. Durability on the tackler is weak. It's a bad gun. They nerfed it directly into the ground, and they shoved it in the ground even further in the most recent patch. I'm surprised this gun is even sellable. It's just bad, and even if they rebuff it, I'm never rebuying the fucking thing. I had it, and I realized that I would never make my money back on these things. And yeah, they'll probably make another change or something, but tackler spiders are dead. Sorry. MLs are significantly inferior to Bigfoots. I think he means... No, he means Bigfoots. And Titans, in terms of durability and traction, big rams are significantly less maneuverable than hovers and easily push. But yeah, we don't plan on making changes to mechanical legs. Get fucked. Get fucked. We'd like to make some comments on parameters of mechanical legs themselves. Their mass values are reflective of the fact that they act as side armor and defend the space below the frame level, as well as increase the height of the armored car for more convenient shooting at enemies with other movement parts. ML200s has sufficient traction. The big ram has reduced traction parameter due to the fact that it has two modes of operation as more versatile. We do not plan on changing the parameter of power consumption because these are builds with different number of these movement parts. Listen, here's the overall idea. They're not wrong in what they're saying. But what they're saying isn't what's being said, isn't the point. Okay, so what the community is saying is, hey man, I can't help but notice that when I mount ML200 legs, I get fucked. The end. That's it. That's what they're saying. That's what we are saying. We're saying, look, when I put on ML200s, when I put on big rams, I can't help but notice that in every scenario possible, I'm getting completely and totally rammed rectally. I can't help but notice that. The devs are saying, whoa, didn't you know that when you put on these legs, you're higher off the ground? And we're saying back to them, that's not what we said. We didn't fucking ask questions about the fucking height over bore. We didn't ask that shit. We're saying that we're getting banged. Can we fix that? Whoa, they say. Don't you know that ML200s and big rams act as armor? They protect sides of your builds. At which point, all we're doing is putting our hand. We're just cupping our heads in our hands, and shaking our head because there's nothing. They're not listening. That's it. They're just not listening. The overall idea is this: you're getting fucking destroyed on legs because they suck. It doesn't matter that they have properties. A good example would be, I don't know, tracks. Has anyone seen anyone using tracks recently? No, not really, because the idea is exactly the same. Yes, it protects the side of your build. That doesn't make it good. Legs have leg survivability against flame weapons. Legs cannot compete with Dracos and Firebugs, obviously. Again, this is me mentioning earlier that we're constantly saying we're getting fucked. We have no plans to increase the rotation speeds because get fucked. But we might address fire damage in a future update. Uh-oh, Dracos. They're giving away Dracos right now. Not giving away, but you can craft fused Dracos in the current battle pass. This sounds very much like when they were giving away free humpbacks. They're about to change up the meta. About to nerf some of that fire. Big rams and Garidias have low tonnage given their mass. Have you noticed that the majority of these goddamn questions are based around legs sucking ass? Is this the last 6? Like, the last 6 questions are all about fucking legs. Anyway, we will look into increasing the tonnage of mechanical legs when the future battles changes. Yeah, maybe. Active melee weapons lose in efficiency to bullet weapons when used in contact battle. Most weapons that can be placed under the cabin or in a bunker will be more effective. Your proposal makes melee weapons the absolute best in contact fights with the enemy, completely removing the ability to counter these types of builds. At the moment, we are gradually making changes to weapons that can be placed under such cabins, such as the Yang Wang. They hate that so much. If other weapons show increased efficiency when mounted this way, we'll make additional changes to them as well. We don't like you hiding your fucking guns. Stop being creative. Get those guns in the open where God intended. But here's the thing, though. Apparently they gave back, because I didn't notice this until I came across a harvester in the field, and I looked at the stats of the harvester. They nerfed the harvester. The last patch note I recall about the harvester was them reducing the durability by like over 100. But according to the last time I saw a harvester and took a look, which would be today, it actually is back up to over 700 durability. So apparently they reverted that nerf. Harvesters used to be the king of obliterating hovers, because the idea was that hovers were small, they were fast and maneuverable, but you'd come in on a light cabin with some vertical mounted harvesters and eat them up. But then nerfs happened, lots of things changed, and you don't see melee pretty much anywhere anymore. And then in addition to that, the reason why those kinds of builds died off is because hovers died off. Hovers died off because of bricks, right? And melee does nothing against bricks, so there you go. Basically, brick meta is what's fucking all of these things. Uselessness, most turquoise modules compared to the purples? Yeah, no. They're I don't even know. We looked at your proposed concept of tying energy consumption to part rarity. Based on the testing, we moved away from hardwiring energy, etc. Regarding the Chameleon Maxwell, we tested energy changes to 1 point in conjunction with reducing parameters. It concluded that even a significant weakening leaves them too effective We are closely monitoring the statistics. So what they're saying is this: the certain teal modules that exist in the game, such as the KA1 Discharger, which was dog shit before and is now even worse than it ever has been, and including the Chameleon, the Maxwell, all of those things like that, they all take the same energy as the Doppler. They take the same energy as the Chameleon Mark II, and so on and so forth. What they're saying here is, even though they doubled energy prices and costs in order to make it so they could more easily balance, it's not enough. It doesn't, like, they'd have to double energy again, and then they might be able to reduce the energy cost or some shit, is basically what they're trying to say. They're saying that these things are too strong. And let's be completely honest, invisibility is super strong. I've mentioned that before, and it always is. Video games are based on sight. You have to be able to see to play video games, and a Chameleon module is insanely powerful regardless of what it is. And the Maxwell, it would be great if it were one less energy, but they'd have to nerf the shit out of it in order to make it so. And even then, it would probably still be too strong or just too useless. As for the KA1 Discharger, it is actually one energy, I think, but it's dog shit. I mentioned this before, I'll mention this again right now. The KA1 Discharger was bugged, and had been bugged for quite some time. When it said that it was giving 15% reload for its energy cost of 2, it was actually not giving 15%, it was giving 18%. So it was basically only a 2% difference between the KA1 Discharger and the KA2 Flywheel. And when they nerfed it, and or changed it, or buffed it, reduced its energy cost, they fixed the bug. So it actually truly only gives 10% reload now. So it is completely dog shit useless. Ram damage, because there are cases when heavy builds enter whatever the fuck. Basically, ram damage. They think it's too high. We have no plans to set limits on ram damage at the moment. There are not many complaints about its efficiency. I mean, they nerfed the Tusk into the fucking earth, right? The only true ram damage build already got nerfed. So I understand that people might not like being crashed into for damage, but it's not as big of a problem as they're complaining. Low survivability of Reapers. Dependency on tracks rolling on Golden Eagles. Reapers imply using them in short-range builds, which consequently have sufficient survivability, whereas Reapers themselves lack sufficient survivability in the current circumstances. Long story short, Reaper sucks. I've mentioned the Reaper sucks before, and it's here again. Like, it still sucks. The Reaper is bad. It has always been bad. It's not going to get good. They're saying that they might give the Reapers more durability, but only in conjunction with increasing its mass. The multiple increases in durability of the Devourer relative to the Reaper is due to its size, not because it's anything else. Regarding the Golden Eagle, currently most builds with tracks, etc. Wait. Tracks, augers, and rolling-based movement parts use other engines than the Golden Eagle. That's actually true. The Golden Eagle is actually not being used mostly with those parts. Usually you use other things, like the Colossus or the basically any of the engines. Like, you could use the Colossus, you'd use the Fin Whale, you'd use anything, because the idea is that you can't reach the 10 km/h speed cap bonus on the Golden Eagle because of the fact the Golden Eagle is not strong enough to raise the top speed of the vehicle to even make use of that plus 10 km/h. That's what they're saying. So the idea is you actually are faster with the Golden Eagle, I'm sorry, not the Golden Eagle, with the Fin Whale than you are with the Golden Eagle, because you weren't able to get to those speeds in the first place. The only times that you would use the Golden Eagle is if you're using a medium or light cabin, and everyone's using heavy cabins. The builds that do use have less efficiency based on the data. These moving parts do not need maximum speed or the engine perk. We'll consider reworking the engine perk or adding a new one. Ooh, Golden Eagle buff / change. Still winds and whirlwinds are weak. They consume 10 energy, so they're weak. I'm not even about to read the rest of this comment. And the still wind is not weak. It's the scam wind. Those autocams are statistically medium and do not require any changes to parameters. Get fucked. We'll consider changing or replacing the still wind perk to a more appropriate one. Your proposal to increase power consumption will affect those who have 3 upgraded. It would make it impossible to mount them on our car, so we will not consider this option. So basically, they're like, hey, why don't we increase the power cost of these and make them stronger? And they're like, no. Ultimately, the scam wind tricked a lot of people because of the fact that it's just expensive. It's expensive because it was rare. It then became propped up by the Catalina because it really stacked the Catalina perk well. The whirlwind is dog shit, has always been dog shit. I've mentioned this multiple times. I'm not going to go into why it sucks again. They may change the perk of the still wind, so no longer has the stupid invisibility thing, and there'll probably be another damage perk. If that happens, the still wind might actually become good on its own. Balance of omnis and atoms, they're unplayable. The unpopularity of Omni in PvP battles is at a high level, and when across all power scores, and we have no plans to make changes to the parameter. What? Oh, they're saying the Omnis are popular. So the idea is that I've seen Omni builds at as low as 9K, 8K. I mean, it's possible to do it with just 3 wheels. The Atom, however, does suck. We'll consider changing the Atom separately from Omni regarding the number of parts. We see the Omni as a good part for light armor cards with 4 movement parts, and for heavier wings, we want the Atom and the Meat Grinder. Fin Whale Engines gives 2 biggest speed boosts to wheel builds and heavy cabins, while this boost is not so important for medium and light. At the moment, we have no plans to introduce fixed engines based on cabins class. As we answered earlier, we have plans to completely rework speed bonuses next year. That is the most ominous shit I've ever read. Remember, they are completely reworking Hit Scan right now, and it's huge. So, yeah. It looks like they're talking about Punisher, Typhoon, Flash again. We've discussed this above, but they're going to mention the Flash. They think the Flash is as good as its legendary counterpart. I would agree with that. Mind you, you never asked me if I thought the Spark was any good. It's not. In general, Tesla emitters are more of an auxiliary weapon, and we don't plan on making them good. I'm sorry, independent. They use the word independent, but they mean good. Usability and efficiency of auxiliary weapons depends on the meta. They can show low efficiency in the current one and be successful in the next. Believe it or not, that's actually true. I mean, there was a time in which Harvester Spark plus Lances was a thing. Remember that? Mars nerf. Why nerf Mars Cabin if it was not much better than the Humpback when it was introduced in the game, and now it will be worse? That's literally the worst fucking question. God damn it! You know how? Never mind. I'm not gonna make fun of the way that question was asked, but Jesus Christ, that's a terrible way to phrase that. It is wrong to compare this cabin with the Humpback solely on the basis of damage bonus, such as would be appropriate if their mechanics are the same. Mars has a switchable activation, which doesn't force it to take damage, and also increases allies' efficiency. Statistically, the Mars has high efficiency relative to the entire class of heavy cabins. Yeah, no, the Mars is a little bit overpowered in comparison to other heavy cabins. Yeah, they're nerfing it. Sorry. Like, what did you guys expect? Anything that gets released in the Battle Pass as good gets nerfed. Anything that's released in the Battle Pass as bad never gets seen again. Assembler. You're not Assembler. I'm just saying. You guys might be saying, Assembler? What? What's that? Exactly. Active melee weapons fall off when used for main purpose of contacting a target. What? Active melee weapons, I think, is something in the neighborhood of harvesters, etc. This class of weapons already has resistance to both blast and ram. Their survivability is a sufficient level. They don't care. The increasing the damage resistance to ram damage to 100% will also allow saws to deal ram damage without receiving them in return. This goes against the concept of ram damage in the game. Lack of explosion with blast damage. They're basically saying they're not going to make them more durable. Someone proposed making melee weapons immune to melee damage, and they're like, no. The presence of a long and stable meta as well as bottom weapons, which really stand out among weapons. Once weapon in battle is seen too often. Basically, they're saying there's meta, and the meta is lasting too long. And they're saying we have no plans to increase the frequency of balance changes. So basically, there you go. Clarinet Toe, very high efficiency for purple weapon. As we answered earlier, the situation with the toe is similar to Augurs after a long time in the game. It's finally able to show competitive efficiency. The popularity of this weapon is due to this unique playstyle. Its efficiency is a medium level. It does a lot of damage, but due to its lack of ability to move the projectile in a vertical plane, damage mainly concentrates on the frames and wheels, yada yada yada. Countering the toe is not difficult. Its rocket's visible. You can shoot it down. Long story short, this is a very long sentence to say no. This is the most amount of words you could use to say no. Hey, nerf the toe. Nah. Basically, they're not wrong. The toe has been in the game for over 4 years, and since its inception into the game, it has been among the worst weapons in the entire game, if not the absolute worst weapon in the entire game. All they did was make it so that it could actually do something in combat. Is what it does good? Not really. It's actually okay. It's okay. It got itself out of D tier, if you're wondering where it is on my tier list. It did get out of D tier. That doesn't make it phenomenal. They're just bitching. This is similar to the Caucus, but for some fucking reason, the devs keep nerfing the Caucus into the ground. Ass clowns. 2 radical changes to value-based changes. Given the frequency of balance changes, such percentages and numbers are now are acceptable. Basically, they're saying that when they make changes, they're too big, and the devs are saying we don't make changes often enough. So because we don't make changes often enough, they seem large. That's just a back and forth comment. They're just talking to each other. Nail guns, weak and unpopular because of the difficulty in implementing their mechanics, especially the Summoner. There's a feeling that after the recently announced balance changes, nail guns will go into oblivion. This makes the assumption that they weren't in oblivion already. Has anyone... Come on now. Does anyone know what an argument is? Does anyone know what a summoner is? Come on. Right now, someone go into the comments, explain the armor, or the mechanics behind the nail guns, the argument, the summoner. I dare you. You do it now without hitting edit. Bang it out in the comments. Do you know why no one's going to be able to do this? Because it's already in the fucking X zone, man. Nobody plays that. Anyway, balance like it's the current change. Any changes aren't going to, like, all these changes that are coming out will not affect nail guns because nail guns aren't used. No one uses these things. Balance problems. Bricks. We have no problems. We have no plans to improve the parameters of the cap can. Yeah, good. Listen, here's the deal. Cap can was a problem. People are thinking the solution to bricks is cap cans. No, it fucking isn't. No, it is not. Does no one remember a year and a half ago when cap cans were all over the fucking battlefield? It is the most cancerous and frustrating gameplay. Like, cap cans are terrible. They were very bad to play against. We don't need them back. They already have a little bit of effect against light and medium builds, but there needed to be a counter to them, because they have always been too strong. Greetings, Dev. Assembler. Oh, holy shit. Someone's saying they want to talk about the assembler. Seems there's a small revamp of the weapon. Since you can't raise DPS, suggest to give it a 13th energy and make it stronger. Yeah, so someone's just asking for an assembler buff. They're like, make it cost more energy if you have to. Make the gun not suck dick. And they're like, well, consider making it not suck dick, but it will still suck dick. Raijin is too strong a cannon. Correct. We're aware of this, but we won't make it legendary. If the previous announced changes are not enough, we'll consider reducing the ammunition as an additional measure. By the way, the previously announced changes include a incredible buff to the Raijin's base damage. Remember that. A 350% increase to bullet damage. Base. Is what they think will fix this gun. They're like, what? The Raijin's too strong? Well, let me hold on. Let me take a look at these statistics. Oh my god, the damage on this thing is incredible. Okay, I think I figured out the problem is. It's not doing enough damage. We're going to increase the damage of the Raijin. We're fucking geniuses. Yeah, no. Basically, the person's complaining because it as a single weapon is too strong for too many power scores, and the answer is not here. Long story short, the Raijin has not sold enough packs yet. I said it. Fight me. Long story short, not enough people paid for the Raijin yet. Let me take a sip of this. Yeah, no. The Raijin will be nerfed after it has sold enough, has made Targum Gaijin made him enough money. There's your answer. That's the answer. That is the true answer. When they have made enough money, they will then nerf it. But it has not sold enough. They have not sold enough, which is the reason why they said the word nerf, but they're giving it a buff. So more people give them money. Once they get enough money, it will be nerfed to the ground. Blast damage boost in comparison to other weapon types of damage boost. Consider the situation. The Marge cabin gives 30% of damage. If we use a build, a weapon that deals blast damage included? No, it doesn't. These guys don't understand how weapons work. We don't plan to make changes that include different bonuses for damage site. We have plans for big rework of Blast in general, but we can't show the details at the moment. So, thank God I don't make these fucking videos. I wanted to, but Jesus Christ. Explaining Blast damage in Crossout is like unlocking the fucking Da Vinci Code. All of the information and the research that went into how blast damage in Crossout works was actually on the old forums that are gone now. So the reason why I didn't make a video on that is because of the fact that I don't have access to the resources necessary to do it, and I'd have to do a fuckload of testing. But as I understand it, blast damage works by creating 8 rays, bullets, from any point of impact, starting with in a clockwise motion around the blast. I know what I just said doesn't make sense, but that's the reason why blast damage is so crazy in Crossout. So the idea is that these 8 rays that are created travel exactly like bullet damage, except as they travel distance, the damage that they deal is reduced by a percentage based on distance traveled out to pin distance. So if you have a 3-pin blast radius, it means at the end of the 3rd pin, the amount of blast damage, or the amount of damage each of those rays can do, is 0. And if it's 1/2 of a pin away, or sorry, 1.5 pins away, the most damage that it can deal is 50%. And it basically works the exact same way with 100% penetration. So the idea is that if it deals 500 blast and the first part has 10 durability, then it will take 10 off of that, travel distance, reduce damage percentage based on distance traveled, and deal damage to the next part, and so on and so forth. It is a lot of work to figure out how fucking blast damage works. So if they're planning on reworking it to something more simple, I'll take that. Maybe it's pure AoE. I hope they don't. If it's pure AoE, no build will survive in Crossout. Because imagine doing pure AoE like a fucking incinerator puddle, but throughout your your entire build, every single time you're struck with an avalanche. No, that's never going to happen. Anywho, yeah, no, they're not going to give damage type bonuses. Oppressor engine, perk problem. I think the perks current realities of the game are fine, but what? They don't want the new perk added. Adding the dependence of projectile speed on the vehicle speed is not right. What? This guy doesn't understand. The pressure perk is mostly used to the full extent, and the bonus itself is slightly increasing the projectile's flight speed, etc. So long story short, this guy's like, what? You're moving faster and you're shooting more accurately, and projectiles are going faster? No! What? No, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. The oppressor is a passive module. We don't need more buttons. We only have 5. What does this guy want? He's like, this dude is asking to have the perk on the oppressor swappable on a button. No, we only have 5 buttons. We only have 5 buttons. We don't have enough buttons as it is. This is not going to happen. And the minor buff, which is a projectile speed increase on the oppressor's already awesome perk of making your weapon spin around faster, is mainly a buff to Leviathans. Crazy buff to Leviathans. So, like, no, this is irrelevant. Sorry. Active melee weapons cannot always deal melee damage. Yeah, that happens. But that's because of this active melee weapon, the Charbitus. This dude's complaining about the Charbitus, right? Here's the reason why. Because the Charbitus sucks dick. And he's saying that saws sink in, but that's actually a benefit to the majority of the saws in the game. The Drubza, or the Mauler, I still call it the Drubza because that's how I remembered it from when I first saw the weapon. It's supposed to sink in. You want it to gently caress the frames underneath the cabin of any build so you instantly one-hit them. That's not a problem. That is not a problem. The Charbitus is a problem. It's just dog shit. And they're not going to change it anyway. Moving forward, low gravity and traction of all builds. They want lower gravity? Spider build weighing 25 to 30 tons can be pushed by... Oh, yeah. They're complaining about spiders again. We get it. You can be pushed. Get over it. Sorry. Listen, spiders suck. In reality, if they wanted spiders not to suck, they would make it so each individual ML200 spider leg gave the effects of the cap can on the ground beneath it as it walked, so that you could walk on any surface, including up and down walls, and then in addition to that, you wouldn't be pushable. But they don't give a shit, so they're not gonna do it. Too much durability at the same time as high speeds. Yep, brick builds. Yeah, we know. Efficiency of legs. Shut up. Quite a large number of... Okay, look, I just want to pause for just a moment. If they're choosing which questions to answer, which they clearly did, and they keep getting complaints about legs, what they should have done was put one concise answer about fucking legs together and give that, instead of padding their fucking content with a million questions about the fucking legs. We get it. Legs suck. Jesus Christ. Anyway, efficiency of heavy legs. Skip. Quite a large number of unplayable weapons, cabins, movement parts. We're going to skip legs. Balance changes contain only parameter reductions, but also quite a lot of rebalancing and improvements regarding the frequency. Really, yeah, whatever. Basically, this person's saying that there's a lot of useless shit in the game. For example, the Howl cabin. I actually don't think it's a bad cabin in general, but in comparison to its contemporaries, it is obsolete, right? Jesus Christ, there's so many cabins. There's just so many cabins that you could say this to. The Quantum cabin, which is the favorite cabin, used to be great. Still has a purpose, but isn't very strong. Like, a lot of cabins do have problems right now. And a lot of weapons, I already mentioned a couple, like the Assembler. We go further and say maybe the Straeus. Like, basically long-range sniper weapons have been hurt really, really badly. You've got the adapters, which are getting nerfed doubly because they're getting an ammunition added to it. They already have projectile velocity, but they're not very good. Yeah, there is a lot of... we've already gone over them earlier. The fucking... the argument in the Summoner. Yeah, there's a lot of weapons that are unpopular and suck. Yeah. But I know I've been waiting to say this entire fucking video. But sucks to suck. Like, that's it. Sometimes things suck. And this is one of those times. People are talking about the recent change to ammunition. Problem is that you have to rebuild all builds for this. Hey, increase the base ammo pack or increase the amount of ammunition cans. Yeah. Please wait until the test server. They're like, come on now. These base values are set so that they don't have to mount. Incorrect. This is actually not true. So you're going to need an ammo crate, purple fused, for additional ammunition for all the guns. This includes, but is not limited to, miniguns. 600 shots may seem like a lot, but you're not doing the math, right? So here's the idea. So one of the things that Jesus Christ, I don't want to make this video fucking forever, so I'll make it very brief. The amount of damage you can deal, is equal to the ammunition cost, the ammunition amount that you have, multiplied by your damage. Full stop. So, things such as the Arbiter. This is a great example. Fires really, really, really fast, right? Fair. Has 600 shots, but does 1 fucking to 2 damage. Like, do you get it? You get that? You're not doing very much damage. So your opponents have a total number of hit points equal to their hit points, right? And if everyone's a brick, how are you supposed to even kill those people with fucking machine guns now? That's the problem. So there you go. Sidekicks are unplayable. A few years ago, sidekicks are bad. We'll look into the problem of sidekicks sucking. They're bad. But then again, so are all wheel drones, except for the Grenadier drone. I mean, and it's even the grenade drone build isn't that strong anymore. The problem of raising builds, most of the time players raise each other up and shoot at point blank range. I think he means wedging. What he's asking for is... he's just mad at wedging. And they're just saying, yeah, we get it. They're going to nerf the plow blade and the Gessen. That's the fix, apparently. They're like, people use the Gessen because it's really low to the ground and comes to a very sharp point, and that very sharp point does, in fact, allow you to get underneath people's builds, and they're like, maybe we'll nerf them. Legs. Problems. Legs. I'm not even going to read it. I'm sorry. Problem is designing a build. Jesus Christ. What the fuck kind of question is that to the devs? We've destroyed solutions and ideas and people who made cool builds. This is true. The Yangwang imbalanced underslung, why change it, etc. So this guy actually, even though I did not read out loud all the words he said, he actually is making a very good point. Crossout, in general, the reason why a lot of people play it, including myself, is because you can do what the fuck you want. There's no game out there where you can make your own car. You make your own vehicle, you make your own car, you bring your own shit, you make it look the way you want it to look, you make it as efficient as you want it to look, etc. Sometimes after you finish making your build and you like it, it sucks. Sometimes it just gets pushed around, gets destroyed, and it makes you look bad. Other times, it becomes the meta and everyone uses it. That's the point, though, right? And that's actually this guy's point. Things are great when you have freedom, and they're taking away our freedom. Insofar as that they're nerfing things such as underslung weapons. What the fuck? You keep putting the Yangwang underneath your build. What the fuck? You guys made sideways or horizontal firing fucking mandrakes. Gotta nerf that into the ground. What the fuck? And mind you, all of those things, even especially horizontal mandrakes, wasn't free. It came at a cost. The thing handles, every one of those things handled like dog shit. It was very difficult to get you had to be very skilled to use those builds specifically. There were the people who made trebuchet launchers that launched fucking Tusk players. So you had to have a player who used the what are those things called? Use skinners to skin themselves to the ground, and then use skinners to lock onto and launch people with tusks to throw them across the entire map to ram into people for millions of damage. These things were great ideas. There were slam dunk builds, all sorts of crazy shit that made Crossout silly and fun at the same time as being viable, and that was crazy awesome, and that is going away from the game, and that's what this guy is saying. The problem is designing a build. He's right. Answer, we're not against interesting and original solutions for armored cars, but any combination design must remain in balance relative to other weapons and parts of armored cars. Your Yangwang example was specifically out of statistical and reasonable efficiency limits. Changing this weapon without doing anything to mounting its location would render the normal setup useless and relative to the bottom setup. Listen, it's just wrong. You shouldn't nerf the balls off of everything because you didn't like the way it was played. Like, this guy's right. I agree with it. Designing fun builds and unique builds and highly efficient builds is part of the game. And the devs don't play the game. They balance the game. The devs don't play the game. They make money off the game. This is work to them, right? And so, ultimately, it would serve the community better, it'd serve the game better if they played their own game, but they don't. Nobody, and I'm not saying they should. That's not an insult to them in that regard. I insulted them plenty throughout this video, and I insult them plenty all the time. But in reality, people... it's difficult to say people should play the game because I've been in situations where developers played their own game, and that's never good. by the way. That's actually worse than developers not playing their own game, because then they end up getting what's known as skin in the game, which is to say that they have a wanted incentive to make their build and their idea better than somebody else's because they want their build to be better. And so when that ends up happening, you end up with games like some games from Nexon and some games from other things where devs actively play the game and their bias is obvious. So this is a tight rope to walk, but I err on the side of freedom because I'm American. Low efficiency of the Enlightenment. We'll consider whatever you have to say. Long story short, change it to shoots a beacon after attaching, reveals the aura, as well as prevents them from using invisibility. Module active time is 15 to 30 seconds. So yeah, you know what? Now that the Beholder cabin exists, not the Beholder, shit. The one that allows you to see people through walls. Now that that one exists, yeah, giving the Enlightenment the ability to see, for the entire enemy team to see the aura of the person attached, why not? That might make the Enlightenment actually barely viable. The Barrier 9 can't protect allies or myself properly. This part has interesting potential, given you have the ability to briefly cover, etc. We have no plans to create partial or full defense buffs inside the barriers, etc. So here's the idea. The barrier... Dang it, they're going to consider the durability of the barrier again. So here's the idea. The barrier's durability is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 2,600, if I recall correctly. It's pretty good. But how do you balance it? Right? The issue is balance. One Barrier 9 isn't a catch-all solution for weapons. The Barrier 9 can be instantaneously popped by a Retcher at 120 meters. Literally. One shot from one Retcher will blow up the entire barrier. This is due to the fact the Retcher has a perk that increases the damage it deals over distance, and in addition to that, it does blast. And if I recall correctly, it takes barriers take 6 times blast damage or something like that, 6 to 8 times blast damage as the balancing for barriers. Barriers are intentionally designed to take additional damage from blast, so they break faster to high explosive, but are better against things such as energy or anything that does bullet. Basically, that's the idea, right? And that's okay, but the idea is this. People make entire builds based off the Barrier 9. There's a guy by the name of Support Vehicle, and he runs like fucking 4 Barrier 9s. When you're up to 4 of them, suddenly it becomes cancer. How do you crack through that if you didn't bring a Retcher, right? And so on and so forth. So it's difficult to balance the barrier. I think that the barrier is actually in a decent spot where it is. If you increase the energy cost of the barrier dramatically, but increase the durability of the barrier, that could be an option. The FG aggregator generator is oversized for its rarity. The size of the aggregator generator builds up, etc. We have no plans to change the model of the generator. It's fine. All right. Wheel builds, even with light cabins, can drive under spiders. We're not going into spiders. Omnis and... I'm not even going to read it. I'm sorry. We get it. Spiders suck. Omnis and atoms slide like they're on ice. Yeah, they drive like shit. So look into it. Mini weapons are convenient to use in a bunker. What? Players assemble box. They're talking about brick builds. The brick build's too good. We know likey. We got it. Problem is not encompassing for all movement parts, etc. Monopoly of wheels on speed. This is the point, though. Hold on. I don't know why this guy's complaining. Many movement parts are low. Have limit. Many movement parts have a low limit of maximum speed, which is not dependent on the cabin. Also cannot be raised by engines. It can. We're currently testing increasing speed limit parts of Phobos. Regarding Golden Eagle, we've discussed it earlier. Listen. That's the advantage of wheels. Wheels are supposed to be fast. Hovers are supposed to be maneuverable. They're not anymore. Legs are supposed to be durable, but they're not anymore. That's the advantage of the wheels, so I don't see the point in nerfing them. And they've already nerfed the way wheels interact with each other, so there you go. Invisibility disruption. In the current state, invisibility turns off from any damage. Proposed to make it more difficult. No! This guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and for the first time, I agree with the devs. Invisibility is strong enough. We don't plan on making it easier. We already fucked up and released the goddamned everyone's invisible the entire match module. Really? You want more invisibility? No. Dude, what? Does this guy not know about the Beholder? Who asked these questions? Use a Beholder, Chucko. If you want to stay invisible for taking damage, use the Beholder cabin with these fucking invisibility modules. Even a heavy build on tracks can't push a medium build. Tracks should Tracks are good enough at pushing enemy builds, and their popularity has increased. That's fine. They're not going to make any changes. They're just saying no. Superiority of parts of greater versus lesser rarity. Yeah, we get it. Weapons of high rarity, of limitations, yada yada. Yeah, that's the point of the game. I don't know what this question is. Yes, higher rarity parts are better than lower rarity parts. Sucks to suck. Significant superiority of weapons that can only be installed in 2 units per build compared to 3 or 4 units. The problem, so they're saying that weapons where you only require 2 of them are better than weapons where you require 4. This is the example between Arbiters versus Reapers, which is funny because he's wrong. Reapers are much worse than Arbiters, though we'll find out how bad Arbiters are after the patch, and maybe that'll be the truth from going forward. But he's also referring to things such as like cannons. Before it was only one rate, etc. Yeah. Although it's easier to place 2 weapons on power modules, weapons that have 3 or 4 also have advantages. Yeah. So the idea is that this is a back and forth between the. This is basically a conversation. Someone thinks that weapons where you require 3 to 4 of them end up being weaker where you require 1 to 2 of them. And if you think about it in terms of an RPG, this is the difference between dual wielding and wielding a weapon in 2 hands, right? A 2-handed weapon, where you use a great sword, versus dual wielding with a dagger and a rapier or some shit like that. Or if you're smart, you're actually using a short sword and a rapier, or you have a feat that would give you 2 rapiers or some shit like that. But the point here is that this guy's saying, hey, having a ton of guns doesn't seem to be as effective as having 2 guns, and basically it depends. It depends. I just have to disagree with that. The advantage of a poorly balanced cabin. The best armor is armor that doesn't get destroyed until the build itself dies, and that's the cabin. If you place your weapons right, they'll be under the solid event. Oh, he's talking about fucking bricks again, isn't he? Gradual increase how many damage a cabin takes depending on its hit point level. For example, if you lost 30% of the durability, you should receive an increased damage. No, this guy doesn't understand time to kill. What this guy is saying is, hey, your cabin should take increased damage as it takes damage. No. Fucking no. That is a terrible idea. So basically what that would mean is, it'd be like, if you guys have played a game called Guilty Gear, or Guilty Gear Strive, there's something in the game called, not toughness, might be toughness, but basically the idea is that as you get lower on hit points, grit, I think it's grit. As you get lower on hit points, you take less damage, because the idea is that your character, you reach these damage thresholds and your character becomes more durable, and this is the reason why life bars are really hard to delete on enemies, unless you're playing Chip, are harder to delete as they get lower in hit points. He wants the reverse of that. So you have a ton of hit points at the start, but let's say you're down to 50% durability, he wants you to take 50% additional damage or some shit. So that means that your remaining 50% hit points is actually half of half. So let's assume you have 1,000 hit points to start with. You're down to 500. In reality, you only have 250 hit points. No, terrible idea. This is a huge problem, and also a massive nerf to heavy cabins, whose cabins are so large. In many instances, I'm looking at you, Mars, you're an outlier, you piece of shit, but in many instances, such as the cohort, are so large that you can't hide the cabin. So this is a bad idea. It's just dumb. Weakness of shields and other modules. All shields except for the Atom are short-lived, and because they have a strong vulnerability to blast damage. Yeah, sucks to suck. That's the point. We'll consider improving the node cabin without changing the interaction with the Aegis on the build. Daze is narrowly focused module and should not be used. What Daze? This guy bring up the Daze? Yeah, it shouldn't be used on every build, etc. Basically, the Daze is only okay. A Fused Daze is okay. There are times in which you would want to bring it, melee builds, etc. But I don't know. These modules, they're supposed to be strong modules and weak modules, and it's difficult, or if not impossible, to see how these modules will combine with future releases. So, I don't know. The Devourer's huge advantage in CW over their other weapons. This is the first time the Devourer came up? This is the whole thing is about fuck-ass legs in the very last question. Hey, the Devourer too strong. In every battle you encounter the Devourer. Hold on a second. Do you know why? Do you fuck-ass know why? It's because they released all these goddamn... Is this a fucking joke? This is a joke? Hold on a second. Let me... You know, never mind. I was going to log into the game and point out the fact that the reason why there's a gajillion fuck-ass Devourers is not because the Devourer is good, it's because they made it fucking craftable. They made it craftable in the most recent events because they released the Fin Whale and they released the Narwhal back-to-back. Every single person saw this, or at least every single person was preparing to craft Devourers, including myself. I have Devourers. I honestly, that's a video for another time, but I think they suck. But the idea was that, oh, I will obtain 4 narwhals and 4 fin whales so that I'll be able to craft these during the next craft event. And then they released the next craft event. And remember, everyone got 4 narwhals and everyone got 4 fucking fin whales because they thought it was going to take 2 and 2. And then in the recent event, that is still ongoing, mind you, they cut the fucking craft cost to 1 and 1. So now we've got a flood of Devourers on the market. The gun is simply fucking common. I hate to say it, it's a relic that's common. It's common to see because everyone made it. Everyone made it because we had too many resources because we didn't know that they were going to cut the resource cost. That's why there's tons of Devourers. As for the Devourers being good, are the Devourers overpowered? I don't think they are. I've tested them, I've played them. Honestly, they aren't that good. They're just not that good. Everyone thinks they're good, but I mean, they're okay. I mean, they're a kaiju. The reason why the kaiju got buffed recently is because of the release of the Devourer. The Devourer's mechanics and the kaiju's mechanics are effectively identical. The only difference is the Devourer shoots longer. And so when they looked at that and said, wait a minute, the durability is similar, the fucking damage is, errs to the side of the Devourer as it should, but the mechanics are the same, and then they looked at that and said, okay, fine, fuck it. We'll buff the kaiju. We'll remove the nerf that the kaiju puts on your build because it's pointless. It's just a worse Devourer, right? So there you go. And then even after they removed the debuff, it is still a worse Devourer pair because 2 Devourers deal the same damage per shot as the kaiju. So it's, I don't know, it's difficult to say. I want to say that the Devourer is good, but my personal experience says that it's mediocre. So I understand that there are people who can land all their shots with the Devourer, and I understand that in many cases it is brutal to just be hammered by the miniguns, especially if your enemy team is rocking 8 of them, right? But what are you fighting? Like, what are you bringing to the table? If you're bringing a brick, a solid dead-ass fire brick, and you're up against Devourers and the Devourers are beating you, I do not have any sympathy for you. I don't. Something has to crack brick meta, and if it's the Devourers, so be it. So, but they're going to keep an eye on it, but in reality, they will nerf the Devourer upcoming. You guys might be wondering why. It's because there's too many of them. They made it so that there's a fuckload of Devourers and everyone's got them, so they're going to give it the Typhoon treatment eventually. Eventually. But for now, they won't. Until these events are over. Surprise. So what you guys should expect a Devourer nerf coming in the next probably 6 months. That's where you're basically looking at this. And you might be wondering, why do I say that? Because the event's going to be good and over, and they'll people will be distracted for the next big thing, and then they'll nerf the Devourer. Who knows how they'll do it, but for right now, the Devourer is okay. I don't know why people are thinking it's overpowered. They only think it's overpowered because they see a lot of it. And again, you only see a lot of it because of the fact that it's easy to craft. There you go. And that sums up all of this goddamned video. I'm sorry for this being so long. I wish I was able to do it faster. The too long didn't read, which is the thing that I should have gone over first, is people mad at legs sucking. And them saying, suck 2 dicks, legs are going to remain sucking. That's it. That's the takeaway. Interesting decision on how they decide to summarize all these questions. Yeah, and also people complaining that some relics not as good as other relics, which is interesting. Because again, sucks to suck. That's just the way. That's just the nature of the beast. I think that again, Ripper is actually quite strong, but that's my own opinion. I think that before the nerf that's coming to all hit scan weapons, the Punisher is quite strong, but I'm pretty sure it's going to end up being in a bad spot after that. Typhoon is bad, needs to be changed, and I don't think a self-referential damage buff is good. I think that it should just go back to its old perk for just a moment, just so people can realize that debuffs can be good. Firebug buff. I mean, projectile velocity is more or less all it needs. There you go. Comments below. Let me know. Take it easy. I've taken enough of your time. And if you've actually watched the entire 1 hour, 7 minutes of this video, thank you. You're a true fan. All right. Peace.